are the men and women who make history? Usually it's neither those born with a silver spoon, nor people born into families of chiefs, kings and the powerful in society. Despite their beginnings and what life throws at them, it can be anyone determined to make a difference in their lives or the lives of others. This episode of Special Assignment commemorates Mandela Day through profiling the story of Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo's life, whose humble beginnings didn't hold any promise of a bright future. But through hard work and the help of good Samaritans in his life, he has ascended to the second most powerful seat in South Africa's judiciary.
When I finished my junior degree, I went back to this man. His name was Mr. Musa, and thanked him and asked him what arrangements we could make for me to pay back. Sorry, Chief Justice. So he said, no, don't worry. Just do to others what I've done to you.
We also bring you exclusive footage of the judge's much-anticipated meeting with one of his benefactors, who 40 years ago helped his family with food, which allowed him to pursue his first law degree, even though he didn't know him. In 1960, South Africa was in turmoil. Women protested against oppressive laws and set fire to cane fields, leading to many of their arrests. In Durban, in January, Katomana, the women are frustrated by the men who spend all their earnings in beer halls and decide to get rid of them. South Africa sees civil disobedience as a result of unjust laws against black people, and in March in Sharpeville, black anger is elicited following the killing of 60 protesters, and the country goes into a state of emergency. Two months later, in the midst of all the chaos in the country, below the scenic Ixopo hills in the southern Midlands of Durban, Judge Raymond Zondo is born. The story of a typical black family at the time was one of poverty. But Judge Zondo's family were amongst the poorest of the poor. By doing piece jobs, his mother made sure they went to school and had something to eat.
Life was difficult when you had situations where there was no food, sometimes at home, or sometimes when you were having dinner at home, you would, as a family, be talking about maybe you shouldn't finish the food because you don't know whether there will be food the following day. So if you finish this food, then you would wake up the following day without anything. Or sometimes all you would have in the family at a certain time would be a packet of meal and then sugar and maybe salt. So my mother would prepare what we call uputu. That's like dry pap, not the pap that you are used to. And then you would do a sugar water and eat that with sugar water, and it would be fine. So it was difficult.
We visited Judge Zondo at his office in Johannesburg to understand more about his life.
At some stage before I decided on law, I was thinking about being a priest. I was also thinking at some stage about being a police officer. But at a certain stage, I made up my mind that I was going to do law. And that was influenced to a very large extent by the fact that in my history studies at secondary school, high school, secondary school, I gained the impression that in many societies where people were oppressed, and where people were struggling against oppression and struggling for freedom, lawyers appeared to play important roles in various people's struggles for freedom. And because of our own oppression as black people in South Africa at the time, I thought that if I studied law, I might be able to make a greater contribution with regard to our struggle for freedom.
After graduating with his first degree from the University of KwaZulu-Natal and having worked for 13 months at the Legal Resources Centre, he was offered an opportunity to do his articles in Durban. This is the building that used to house the struggle icon and human rights lawyer Victoria Mklenge's legal practice, where he mainly worked on labour matters.
I felt very privileged at the time to have been accepted by that law firm to do articles with them, particularly under Mrs. Mklenge herself, because she was a great human rights lawyer. She was very dedicated to the struggle for freedom. She was very committed to helping poor people. She was very committed to helping students. I very much wanted to go and work there, and fortunately I was accepted, and she told me she accepted me even though there was no vacancy. The law firm dealt with a variety of cases, and if you were doing articles, you did all cases. Although I was given the labor law department to establish, my work was not confined to labor law cases, because being new in the field, I needed to know as much as possible. So some of the cases that were done, apart from human rights cases, political cases, then labor cases, there were a lot of evictions of people from townships, and the law firm did some of those as well.
Mklenge's husband Griffiths had been politically assassinated earlier in 1981. In 1985, she too was brutally killed.
As we arrived close to the gate, his son was here, and I said to his son, no, he doesn't have to open the gate, he can just come in because I'm not coming in. And so he came to the car and opened the rear left door, and the mother opened the front door. She was collecting her parcels, and the son was going to collect parcels from behind. And at that time I wasn't studying. People came in, the people sprang from this area, and I had two clicks. I thought it was a toy gun. I thought it must be people pulling a fast one on his son. And all of a sudden I heard them saying, Kulma Sebens. And then I saw one taking a tomahawk and actually passing. And Miss Mklenge realized that it was in the front, and she shouted, running this way, and they were following.
I was shocked to hear first of the assassination, but two of the brutality that was used to assassinate her. It was something very disturbing, and of course, you know, she was my principal, you know, and in effect that meant that my articles were coming to an end. But of course, what was important, which already at that time, of course, I was appreciating, was the political implications of the assassination. There was a lot of anger from people in the townships at the time, because she was very popular and she had helped a lot of people as a lawyer and simply as a person.
This is where we used to walk when we were going to school, when I was at primary school. I'm going to show you here. There is a spring.
This is the spring where they used to fetch water as children. Before meeting his benefactor, Judge Zondo took the opportunity to retrace his footsteps in the village he left as a young man, armed only with hope and determination to improve the poverty-stricken circumstances of his family. Special Assignment went along with him to retrace his beginnings.
Abazali, abantwana nabothisha, umyalezo othi imfundo ibalulekile kakhulu. Ngakho ke umntwana, umzali, uthisha, bonke labantu kufanele babambisane ukuthi benze ukuthi umsebenzi wokufundisa umntwana esikoleni ube impumelelo.
I could see that he was going to be somebody great because he was a very intelligent man. He taught us Latin even as one of schoolmates.
Judge Zondo is a good example to this community because he was coming from the poorest of the poor family. He was brought by a single parent, but he never lost the vision, what he wanted to be. I can imagine the distance that he was walking, about 20 kilometers coming to the school, walking through plantations, but he had an ambition to become an important person.
While living in this area, a concerned neighbor once gave him 3 white shirts because he had no clothes and was a respectful and hard-working child. Judge Zondo has fond memories of his mother and will always appreciate her efforts to educate him and his siblings under the most trying of circumstances.
When at some stage my mother wasn't at home for about a year because she was sick and she had gone to receive some medical treatment, the Mrs. Zondo was the person that was effectively keeping an eye on my younger brothers and sister at home because they were like a child-headed family at the time. I was at university at the time. Now, this path here is quite important. It is the path we used when my mother was walking me to the bus on my when I went to boarding school for the first time in 1976. So on the day that I went to boarding school for the first time in January 1976, my mother came and passed through the Zondo residence. As we were walking here, my mother was emphasizing to me that I should not, when I'm at boarding school, forget why she had sent me to boarding school. She was emphasizing the importance of education. And I can still remember that on that day, that morning, she was wearing a torn pinafore and was telling me how much she had sacrificed to save money to send me to boarding school. Uyaphila kodwa? Akumnandi ukubona. So we start. Okay. Balekile ukuthi nizitshele ukuthi nifuna ukuba izinto ezinkulu ezimpilweni zenu. Yes? Yes. Ningacabanga ukuthi ngoba nisendaweni okuthiwa semakhaya ngoba niphuma ezindaweni emindenini mhlambe engamile kahle nicabanga ukuthi nina anikufanele ukuthi niphumelele nibe lapha phezulu. Nani nikufanele lokho. Yes?
Yes. There's nothing that you can do without being educated. Today we need education. A job that we have these days needs people who are well educated. That's the things that he has left with the school and with the learners as well.
He is from a very humble family. He was different from, I would say, from many boys. He was not, in most cases, looking after cattle because I remember that there were no cattle at his home. But what he used to do was to fetch water from the spring, having a bucket on his head, collecting firewood from the field and from the forest, having firewood on his head. And at that time, boys used to laugh at him as if that was normal. It was not normal what he was doing, but he was doing a good job. And what I liked him, as I say, that he's 6 years younger than me, he was very positive in everything he was doing.
This is St. Mary's Seminary. It used to be the boarding school that Judge Zondo matriculated from. He credits the school with instilling a sense of discipline in him and for being a stepping stone towards a more rigorous academic life. After his thought was Mr. Musa was located, Judge Zondo had hardly had any contact with him in 40 years, but in between the two men is only 1 day away. It's for him and his family.
Here is a house that I built in 1989 before I got married. In 1992 or 3, there was political violence in the area, and at that time I was working as an attorney in Durban, and my mother and my other siblings were living here. And I got a call while I was in the office that there was a plan to attack the Zondo family. And then I immediately left Durban and drove here that day. And I then took my mom and my other brothers. My sister was not here. And I said they must just take whatever they could, and we had to leave immediately because the information I got that the family was going to be attacked that same night. So I took them and we left everything, and we never came back to take stuff. Indeed, there was an attack on the family that night, but fortunately there was nobody.
Throughout his ups and downs, his family has been his main source of strength.
We met at the post office, Ixopo, and I just saw this guy, and I can't really say what attracted me to him, but I just loved the guy as he was. He was a very supportive dad when they were so little. He used to play with them, and even though I had to do so much work on my own because he was busy, he was always busy. Even if when he was a lawyer, he was always busy. So I had to do everything, but he was so supportive, especially financially. He was supportive.
As captain of the Dolphins, his son Kaya is a successful cricketer. He took important lessons from his father.
He's been very influential towards me when it comes to my career and just guiding me as a human being. So obviously he's been through quite a lot in his life, and he's helped me get through the little bit that I've had to struggle with in my life.
The final stop, the shop where it all started. This is where Judge Zondo took a chance and asked the man he thought was Mr. Musa, a total stranger, for help.
This is either we were standing here or somewhere here. That is Mr. Bux and myself on that Saturday morning when I approached him and asked him whether he could give me a loan that I would use to support my family for 3 years while I was studying at university. And he said he would give my mom, he would give me a voucher that I would give to my mom, and my mom needed to come to this shop once a month and get groceries.
Today is the anticipated day. Mr. Suleman Bux arrives. The judge's family is excited to meet the man who has played an important role in their father's life.
I'm all right. How are you? Welcome. It's so good to see you. This is the Mr. Bux. Yes.
Good morning, Mr. Bux.
How are you? Thank you. Welcome.
Mr. Bux brought some of his family members to witness this moment. After their arrival, both families meet for the first time and share a generous feast that makes the moment last.
This is something that you need symbolically for this war. So when you have it in your house, just remember that it is given to you because we believe that you are contributing to helping people get out of poverty through education and other ways that you are using. So you might just put it somewhere in your house, and it will remind you of us, and it will remind you of this occasion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And for Mr. and Mrs.
And there's a
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
There's a saying that goes something like this: if you haven't thanked the creation, you haven't thanked the creator.
Yeah.
And indeed, I feel personally, and I think my family would all agree, that it's your attitude of gratitude that has actually brought you to where you are today. And we thank you too.
Thank you so much.
The journalist who traced Mr. Bux after hearing the judge's emotional testimony was there to witness this historic moment.
Well, actually, it's quite an interesting story. I belong to a group called the Port Shepstone Business Forum. And one of our good friends, Mtoko Mbombo, he posted it on our WhatsApp group. And I thought, I know this somewhere, somehow. And I went back, I said, surely somebody knows who this guy is, this Mr. Musa in Ixopo. And then another good friend of ours, Dr. Bux, who's also part of the group, he said, hey, that's my cousin. And that's where it all started.
Qualified with 3 master's degrees, having chaired the initial board that established South Africa's Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration, having been a Labour Court and its Appeals Court judge, and now the Deputy Chief Justice of the highest court in South Africa, the Constitutional Court, Judge Zondo is thankful for the road travelled and recognises the responsibility that lies ahead, which includes transformation and improving the efficiency of the courts.
I think the role of the judiciary in post-apartheid South Africa has been to protect and deepen and strengthen our constitutional democracy, to strengthen the rule of law. And of course, when one looks at some of the judgments that various courts have given, including the Constitutional Court, one will see that there are a number of judgments where the courts have been called upon to deal with issues that affect ordinary people, poor people in our country. Our courts, I think, the judiciary have been very active in dealing with matters and sensitive to the interests of poor people. Evictions is one area, socio-economic rights that are in our constitution. I see my role as assisting the Chief Justice in providing leadership to the entire judiciary, dealing with postponements and some of the unnecessary postponements that happen in the system, in the courts. But I know, for example, that as I start in this new position, already there are a number of systems in place that the Chief Justice, together with other leaders of the judiciary, the judges, president, and the president of the Supreme Court of Appeal, have put in place.
Judge Zondo has achieved high levels of success in his career, thanks to, among others, the help of Mr. Bux, who insists on not being recognized or celebrated because he was just fulfilling his obligation to humanity. Mr. Bux asked only that Judge Zondo help others as he had helped him, a standard that Judge Zondo has lived by and which has helped others to achieve their dreams. These champions of our society make our world a better place.
I look back to that Saturday morning when I stood in front of him and put my request to him, and we had that discussion. And I look back and realize that it could have meant that I didn't go to university if I didn't find help. And if I didn't go to university, I don't know if I would later on have been able to go to university, or whether I might have been distracted after starting work somewhere and never continued, or maybe lost the passion for what I wanted to do at university. So it's very crucial. It really could have changed the course of my history.